fantasy then. Come on, man, it's your fantasy.
I haven't got into the details so much.
Hey, you don't have enough windows open, enough tabs open.
Yeah, should I open some more?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I had one like 5 minutes ago. The right one.
Oh, heads, right?
Great, thanks. Appreciate it.
They said
I
pin.
want to look to how I can
Pin.
this every transaction platform.
All right, party people. It's 6:01 Tuesday night. 6:02 local time here in Bali. Live from Ubud. This is the filter number 55. 55 episodes already. And today's episode is called Bye Bye Bitcoin. I hope that was a very provocative title. I hope you're here. Bitcoin is actually, if we're actually going to say goodbye to Bitcoin tonight or not, stick around to the end. I don't want to cliffhanger. What are we going to talk about tonight? We've got a little bit of local news. I'm on day 28 of living my life on Bitcoin, so I'll give you an update on that. I am still alive, thankfully. We've got. Oh yeah. We've got. We're going to talk about Bitcoin taxes. But sometimes people ask me, like, "Well, isn't that going to make it hard to collect taxes?" Well, we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about gold. Anybody interested in gold? Some people compare Bitcoin to gold. Gold took a tumble. You guys been watching gold? It took a tumble this week. Oh yeah. What's that all about? Like usual, we're going to go around the world. We're going to go to Washington, D.C. and Indonesia. We're already in Indonesia, but we're going to visit some Indonesian news. We're going to go to China. There's news in China. And Greece. Got the Greek update, the Greek tragedy update for you guys. There's some really salacious news, really true soap opera material, cloak and dagger stuff with Varoufakis. We'll talk a little bit about that. And if we get to it, we've got our Nerd Alert segment where we're going to talk about proof of work and the halving day, the Bitcoin halving day. So hopefully, if we don't go too long on the other stuff, we'll nerd out later on at the end. So stay put. Let's kick things off here. I'm just going to share my screen. And there we go. Everybody should be seeing what we're seeing up there. So Bitcoin filter number 55, Bye Bye Bitcoin. I don't want to leave you guys hanging any longer. The reason we called it Bye Bye Bitcoin is not because Bitcoin is leaving, but I am leaving. I am going on a little hiatus. I will be out of the country. I'm actually going to be incommunicado for 26 days during that time, but I want you guys to rest assured that the filter will go on. We will still meet here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. local time. Rick Shreves has generously offered to take the reins. So that's gonna be awesome. It's gonna change the flavor a little bit in a very good way, and you're gonna break the Gary monotony of these meetings for a little while. But I will be back September 9th, and actually I think I might do one of the shows from Australia. I'll be in Australia at that point in time. So anyway, that's a little announcement. Let's see here. All right, so this is how things work. What are we up to here in Bali? Well, we're having a discussion about Bitcoin. Why are we having a discussion about Bitcoin? Because we're trying to build a Bitcoin economy. We are trying to get people to use Bitcoin as money. We get together every week in that regard. And when we're not together in person, we have this conversation going on Facebook. If you go to groups/Bitcoins in Bali, you can find an ongoing discussion taking place there. Post something there, and then in all likelihood, we'll talk about it on Tuesday night when we get together. So that's how it works. We're collaborating on building the economy here. We do that through Facebook and also through Twitter. If you go to the Bitcoins in Bali hashtag, we've got conversations going on Twitter. I've got a tweet all teed up here to let people know we are live and online. Did everybody know that we stream these live every week? Okay. There's a few people that watch online. It's no big deal, but it's fun to let people know what's going on. A few that weren't aware that we do it through the tweet there.
Does your mother tune in?
What's that?
Does your mother tune in?
My mother does tune in. Sometimes that's the only time I get to interact with Mom. She's like, I think she, feels like she can hang out with me in this way. I mean, she's on the other side of the planet, so when I'm sleeping, she's up, and vice versa. So I do think that she tunes in every once in a while.
Mom, please send Bitcoin. Shout out.
I'm not quite there yet. So Twitter is an interesting platform because it allows you to interact with anybody. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And I reached out to these guys. Are you guys familiar with this couple who got married and then lived for 6 months, the first 6 months of their marriage, only on Bitcoin? Well, they made a movie about it, and the movie was just released. So I sent them a tweet, hey, why don't you come screen your movie in Bali? And they're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And I was like, well, why don't you guys come? You guys can come and promote it here and do a Southeast Asian tour. So I talked to these guys on the phone this morning, and it's possible. We don't know. We're going to give it a shot, but I think it's a fun idea. It would be neat to have these guys, like, we did the Bitcoin Film Festival at Paradiso. Maybe we could get Paradiso to screen this and have a little Q&A after the fact. So let's see if we can't pull that together. But cool that we were able to connect with just about anybody on Twitter. Speaking of movies, it's Bitcoin month here at Hubud, and last night we screened The Rise and Rise of Bitcoin. We had a full house. We set it up kind of drive-in style out in the courtyard outside. Give everybody a little bit of mosquito spray. Rise and Rise of Bitcoin, which is already about a year old, but it's a good history lesson. When I watch it, I relive those days when Bitcoin was $30 a piece. And I relive those days when Cyprus had its catastrophe and sent the Bitcoin price spiking. And then also I remember watching the price fall, from highs of like $266 all the way back down to $60, $70, $80, and not really knowing what was going to happen, But last night, we got to watch that with the group, and afterward, people stuck around, and we talked about it for a good 15 or 20 minutes, I think, after the fact. It's even though I've seen this movie before, it's good to watch it with other people. It's just fun to get people's reaction and see what they want to talk about when we watch stuff like that. So anyway, it's been Bitcoin month. We've seen 4 movies over the course of the month. And we've got one more Monday left. I wasn't planning on showing another movie, but somebody posted this one, this Bitcoin, The End of Money as We Know It. Has anybody watched this movie yet? Would anyone be interested in watching it on Monday? Should we have one more movie Monday before I take off? Okay. This one should be a little bit more timely. It looks like it just came out. Some people that I've talked to have said it's very good. So maybe we will stick together. Yeah, just watch Facebook and I'll post it there. Also, the last item of Bitcoin month will be this final Bitcoin 101 class. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and if you just go to bitcoinsinbali.org, you can find the little placeholder we've got here. Wednesday, July 29th at 5 p.m. You can, if you would, just use this little register link. Let us know you're coming so we can prepare. And send us your noobs, guys. Anyone, we assume that people know absolutely nothing about Bitcoin when they show up. So by the time we're done, They've got a working wallet. They know how to store it safely. They know how to spend it. We even go out afterward to a local restaurant and turn our Bitcoin into a sandwich. It's just like magic. So come check that out, or send us your friends. Also wanted to reiterate that Coin Academy has an open survey going on right now. They're trying to collect data about alternative cryptocurrencies and how many. Basically, they're going to create a report based on the answers, and if you participate, you can get an advanced copy of the report. So if you're at all interested in alternative currencies, altcoins, please go to Coin Academy's survey and check that out.
You can get there from the blog.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
From the
links
so
to that rather than going to that long URL.
Yeah.
There.
okay, I'll post the link from the blog post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It explains why we're doing it.
All right, guys, doesn't this look interesting? I know everybody loves to look at a tabular data, but this is very exciting. This is, you know, I've been living for the last month on Bitcoin. And for those of you who may not know, Bitcoin has an open ledger. So anybody can take a look at the Bitcoin blockchain and figure things out. So what I've got here is, I'm not going to name names, but this is a local merchant who's been accepting Bitcoin for the last few months. And one thing struck me that was really interesting. You know, these are all the individual transactions, but check this out. Because Bitcoin has been going up lately, these people have sold the equivalent of $483.90 worth of goods, but because of the rise in the Bitcoin price, the Bitcoin that they have is now, well, at the time of the last transaction, and based on the increase in the Bitcoin price, is now worth $559.97. So an increase of $76, which on a percentage basis is pretty cool. You know, I talked to a lot of merchants, a lot of local merchants. Like I said, we're trying to get this little economy to take off. And inevitably, we have a discussion around, do I convert my Bitcoin to rupiah, or do I keep it in Bitcoin? And it's an interesting question. You know, if you need to pay your bills, it makes sense to convert to rupiah because all of your bills are going to be in rupiah. But if you have a small number of Bitcoin transactions, if this only represents 1 or 2% of their overall take, then it becomes kind of interesting, right? You can, if you don't need to cash that money in to pay your bills, you can just accept Bitcoin and then watch the price go up and down. Now, this is a change of 15% to the benefit of the merchant, but also, you know, it could have gone the other way. And over the course of the last year, it has been kind of trending downward. So, and you know, merchants aren't in the game of Bitcoin hedging and playing Forex markets. So it's fun on a small scale, but I think if you were to do this, you know, if Bitcoin were to take off and people were to start, you know, a significant portion of their transactions were in Bitcoin, yet their expenses were still in rupiah or dollars or euros, they'd have to start making some more sophisticated decisions about how much Bitcoin they keep.
May I ask how this is generated?
This is generated from the blockchain based on a known Bitcoin address from one of the merchants.
Okay.
And then I've got a lookup table. These are all the prices throughout the month, Bitcoin prices. So I've got to basically look up the price each day and then determine how much profit or loss they're taking.
So it was done manually, one transaction by transaction.
Well, no, no. You can download the entire transaction history over a range of dates, and then I did a few of these columns, calculated a few of these columns manually. Yeah, you can see this one is a lookup table from the other sheet. But
Yeah,
so
I'm wondering how easy it is to generate something like that, like for merchants. really great if there's.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if we can automate this, that would be cool, and it shouldn't be too difficult. The other interesting thing though about this whole thing is, here are my personal expenditures, and I also win when the Bitcoin price is going up because I'm getting a discount on everything that I buy. So it's a real win-win situation when the Bitcoin price is trending positive. It's good for the merchants and it's good for the consumer. And you can see here that, let's see what I've got down here at the bottom.
You make your budget. That's great.
Well, I'm not done yet. We've still got a few more days left.
More
But,
great.
Anyway, the other way to look at this is, you know, when the Bitcoin price goes up, I'm getting a discount on everything that I'm buying with Bitcoin. So everybody loves it when the price is trending up. In fact, people don't even mind the volatility when the price is going up. But when it's trending downward, that's another story. But, you know, over time, and as people use Bitcoin as money, creates more demand for Bitcoin, we should see, all things being equal, increased demand and therefore an increased price trend for Bitcoin in general. But we shall see. It's interesting to look at a very specific budget. You know, this actually happened. And if we were to try it a year from now, which I plan to do, another Bitcoin month next July, maybe I can talk you guys into joining me next July. We can do a comparison here. See, you know, I have a feeling that at least the prices in terms of Bitcoin will look all out of whack. Who knows where the Bitcoin price will be 1 year from now, but it'll be fun to do this experiment again and compare. So that is the plan. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is, well, sometimes when I talk about using Bitcoin, people talk about taxes. And I know that we've got an international set of people here. Not everybody is paying US taxes, but everybody presumably has to pay taxes somewhere, right? If they're going to play by the rules, if they want to participate in their country, they probably have to pay taxes somewhere. And the question becomes, how do you pay your taxes with Bitcoin? Well, in the States, it's just like any capital gains on property, right? If you were to buy a boat and the boat were to increase in value, and you were to sell the boat for a profit, you're supposed to recognize the capital gains on that item. Well, Bitcoins are the same, well, at least as treated by the US IRS, they're treated the same way. But the question becomes, yeah, it's property, and when you sell it, you either make money or lose money. But when you're selling a Bitcoin, which Bitcoin are you selling? Are you selling the Bitcoin that you bought last week? Or are you selling the Bitcoin that you bought 5 years ago for $30? Yeah, good question, huh? So another thing that's cool about the blockchain is that, you know, even though people say that Bitcoin is anonymous, it's also incredibly precise if you want it to be. You know, it's a public ledger of every Bitcoin down to the 100 millionth of one Bitcoin. So you can, and what I've done here is I've taken a look at this Bitcoin service called LibreTax. And I just downloaded a comma delimited file of all my Bitcoin month expenditures and fed it into this software. And over the course of the month, I've made a profit of $7.59. But that's on a first in, first out basis. So what it's assuming is that whenever I'm selling Bitcoin, I'm selling the oldest Bitcoin in my wallet, right? And Bitcoin was 17% less expensive at the beginning of the month. So every Bitcoin I'm selling, according to this first in, first out, the Bitcoin that I've made the most profit on. But check this out. I can also try last in, first out, and look at what happens to my profit. It goes way down significantly. It's kind kind of interesting. But presumably, if I sold all my Bitcoin, it would even out, right? But while I've still got some Bitcoin in flux, I like the last in, first out model. And if I bought Bitcoins 5 years ago, why not sit on those? I can sell the ones that I bought for $800 last fall, take the loss, and sell those other Bitcoins later. And who knows? I like this also because what if Bitcoin goes to zero, right? I want to put off my profit taking as long as possible. And it's cool that there are services like this to kind of make it easy. All I did was upload the Comment Unlimited file, and then it calculates all this stuff for me. Now,
Could you also decide exactly which Bitcoin you sell? You decided based on the least amount of tax that you're going to get
well,
randomly?
the interesting thing is, like most wallets do your key management for you behind the scenes, but you could buy 100 Bitcoins today and put it on a paper wallet and throw it in a safe, and you're not selling those Bitcoins when you're using your wallet. So, but it's kind of difficult to manually decide which Bitcoin you're going to buy or sell at any given time. You can do it.
No, just for the tax purposes, not actually buying or selling. I'm saying just for the tax purposes, you decide the Bitcoin that you bought for a lot of price is the one that you sold.
Well, you know what? These guys have another algorithm, this optimized.
Yeah.
It goes down to 489. They may be doing something along those lines. Finding the Bitcoin that you're going to lose the most money on, or make the least on at that moment in time, and presuming that you sold those instead.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna get the IRS to buy into this?
Presumably there's
This lifestyle
precedent with share sales.
The who?
There'd be precedent in the US tax law, which I don't know US tax law, but around share sales. So you could have bought 100 shares of Microsoft 10 years ago and 100 shares last week. And
Right.
you can't necessarily, my understanding is you can't necessarily stipulate how much you want to pay in tax. So there'd be precedents set in terms of how you're
Right.
supposed to calculate
That's what I was trying to get.
whether
to.
it's first in, first out, or last in, first out, or weighted average, or
Right.
whatever. There'd be an IRS directive around how to treat that for
Yeah.
shares, and I'd imagine that would be the approach that takes.
Except he's saying this is art, it's not shares. It's something completely different. They're looking at this as similar to art.
Like fine art.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's not shares. It's something a little different.
Yeah,
The laws are a little different on that.
but essentially it's calculating a capital gain on a past variety of parcels. So regardless of whether it's a share or whether it's, I don't know, like some other kind of derivative or whatnot,
Mhm.
I think they'd take a pretty uniform approach in terms of how they work that out. I would think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless-
Well,
Couldn't you
Yeah,
theoretically
yeah,
get audited, because you can say exactly which, if you wanted to, you could go in and see exactly which Bitcoin was purchased and which Bitcoin was sold.
You could.
Could theoretically get audited.
Well, what's interesting about that is I believe the Australian tax authorities want you to list the Bitcoin addresses that are in your control,
Really.
if I'm not mistaken.
It's good stuff. So they
I'd be
can-
interested to hear from any Aussies out there if that was a requirement or not.
That would be hard. I mean, if your wallet generates a new address each time.
Well, I mean, presumably you could do some output that into some sort of file, and the question becomes though, how do you prove or disprove whether you have or don't have the keys that those addresses point to? Let's say that $10,000 went to an address. You can say I have the key or I don't have the key, and depending on your answer, that produces a taxable event. Or what if you transfer that $10,000 and then you lose the key? Do you recognize the profit? Do you still owe tax on the profit even though you no longer have control over the coins?
The problem is with the tax departments is the burden of proof is in reverse. So they can just go, here's a $50,000 tax bill, you prove that we're wrong.
Right.
So it's up to you to prove whether you're innocent or guilty.
But how can you prove that you've lost the key for a Bitcoin?
You can't, or you could probably convince them by producing like a corrupted hard drive or something like that. If you had it stored on a drive, and then you move the key somewhere, like have a copy somewhere, that's the only way.
Well,
It'll
this
be
is
subjective. It'll be up to the agent that you're being audited by.
right. But it's an
You might
interesting
get away with
question. You know, what if, you know, let's say that I lost. What if I think I lost my keys? What if I dropped my laptop in the Subak, and you know, all of a sudden all my keys are gone, and you know, the IRS learns about my Bitcoin addresses and says, oh, well, you know, all of these were moved into new addresses over the course of the last year. You owe this much money. And then do I have the ability to say, I don't have those anymore or not? And then what happens if they move later? I don't know. It's interesting.
Laptops get stolen.
It's an interesting quandary.
I mean, if you had a police, like, just going on what you just said, if you had it on your laptop and your laptop got stolen, you had a police report, insurance claim, you've done your best to prove your story, then I can't see how they could tax you. But in the same breath, the loss that you generated by losing those Bitcoins, they would disallow, I'd imagine. And if they turned up again in your possession, they'd tax you on the whole value from zero all the way up. Never underestimate.
Are they getting that savvy and monitoring it?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I heard that the Aussie tax authorities were wanting you to list actual Bitcoin addresses in your tax return. Take a long time to write that out, you know.
Yeah, no. What type of it?
Can you guys can Aussie still file manually, like with a handwritten? Yeah. I'm pretty sure in the States you can still submit. Yeah, so you could get out your pen and paper and start writing down your Bitcoin addresses. It wouldn't take too long. Anyway.
Seems like there is a space for creating a software though that you just put your wallet addresses or whatever, and then creates all the taxes. That's the least amount of taxes.
Actually, these guys, that's part of what these guys do. They can. You can give them a list of Bitcoin addresses, and you can specify, I still have control of this one. This one is not mine, and then it will go through and calculate, the taxes owed. Yeah, in this case, this is their calculation. Is that over the course of the month I've made $4.89. You know what's interesting about this though is, we're in Indonesia. Oftentimes, Indonesia is like, I've seen it as much as 12% off of the global average on Bitcoin. And a Bitcoin price is only relevant at a certain moment in time on a certain geographical location, right? You could be in Indonesia and paying a premium or getting a discount on your Bitcoin, and this doesn't take that into consideration at all. If you ever look at the price of local Bitcoins, they're like 10 or 15% higher than the others. So what price are they using to calculate these? I'll bet it's 2 or 3% either way, depending on various factors. So.
Didn't that variation all even out at the time as well? Is more sort of automated trading comes in?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a judgment call. I mean, do you want to get your prices from the Indonesian exchange, or do you want to get your prices from Bitcoin Average, or it's kind of a judgment call. I know
that's the same with the FX markets, though.
Yeah.
What exchange you go and what rate, whether it's LIBOR or whatever it is.
Seems like there's a lot of room to fudge there, though.
Yeah, there is, but you get caught up when you start switching backwards and forwards to suit yourself. So if you go, like for this tax year, I'm taking Indonesia, and then for the next one, I'm going to the US, and you go backwards and forwards. They just look at you and go, ridiculous.
But you could do it on a per transaction basis. You could say I was in Indonesia for this transaction, I was in California for this transaction.
Yeah, if you have a basis for your argument, but if you're just kind of plugging it out of your hand to suit yourself, they don't like that.
Yes. I love doing taxes.
Yeah.
So much fun.
So happy I never got taxes.
Basically, the deal U.S. citizens have with the IRS is the IRS says, you owe us some tax. Go figure it out, and if you're wrong, then you're screwed.
Yeah, it's so complicated.
But the thing that's really different for you guys compared to the rest of the world is the worldwide tax. The rest of us have residency, where we can be resident in different countries depending on certain amount of things, like where we're getting paid and where we're living and stuff like that. Whereas you guys get slapped wherever you are, which
Yes.
is different. Like
Yes.
It's telling you in the Philippines, the two only countries that have this too.
That has a tax on global income.
Only if you live in the US for 2 months out of the year, though. If you live in the US less than 2 months, then you don't have to pay tax in the US.
No,
You can claim
it's-
as a non-resident.
No. It's why there's a lot of people now that are actually
Moving outside the US.
There is an
renouncing their
exemption.
US citizenship
Yeah.
to get out of it.
There is an exemption. If you work for a foreign company, I think you can take your first $97,000 or the equivalent tax-free, because presumably you're paying that tax in another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And then over and above that, I think you,
There's always the double tax agreements. So if you're paying tax in another jurisdiction, so if you're paying in Indonesia, that gets taken into account when you file a US tax return. But for example, for Australia, if I was getting paid here and taxing here, I don't have to lodge an Australian tax return at all. I'm not there.
it's kind of amazing when you think about it, how much tax they collect. I mean, you've got, in the States, you've got income tax, and then you've got sales tax. And you've also got income tax on the state where you live, right? And then if you make money on your Bitcoin, you've got a capital gains tax. You know, it's like 50% of your income.
What's more amazing is how little it seems they're doing with all that money.
Well, they still run at a deficit. I mean, our debt is in the United States is $18 trillion.
Yep.
And to put it in perspective, they only collect about $4 trillion in taxes. So if everybody just gave all of their, all of their money for the next little while, they still wouldn't pay it off. Take years. Anyway, it's amazing. If you ever get up on an airplane, you look down at all the houses everywhere, and you're like, all those people paying taxes. It's like amazing that we run out of money, even still.
People just buy one Bitcoin and then wait for the dollar to crash and then pay it with the Satoshi.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like the idea of paying my taxes with Bitcoin, because then you can see what they spent it on.
True.
Yeah, you can watch it all the way to the the drone wing that you bought.
To the bomb to drop on
Yes.
But the blockchain doesn't give you information on the name of the merchant.
Well, no, we would have to rely on the government to be transparent about how they're spending our tax money.
Right.
They'd have to show us that these accounts are associated with the military, or these accounts. But I think that's the future of democracy. Like, vote. If I could vote with my tax dollars, like, hey, it's fine if you want to go help some homeless people with my tax money, but don't spend any of it on military. That would be pretty cool.
It's not gonna happen.
That's what It's gonna-
I'm sure we can do that, but we'd have to kill you for that.
Someday, maybe. Anyway, I can dream. So here's a graph over the course of the month. The green is the US dollar value, and then this is the number of Bitcoins I have at any given time. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's pretty close. Sometimes I'm a little bit below. Like, I think I bought Bitcoin, but the price went down, so the green line is a little bit below the Bitcoin line. But in other cases, I think this is where we got the Greece news and the price spiked. So the US dollar value was higher than when I purchased it. But for the most part, it kind of tracked pretty closely to my expenditure, to the point where over the course of the month, like the LibreTax said, I only made a profit of about $4 or $5 after spending $1,000. So I'm hoping that this supports the notion that people who participate in the Bitcoin economy can just buy a little bit of Bitcoin, spend the Bitcoin, and then top up the tanks, and then spend it, kind of like going to the ATM, right? And people won't lose out in that way, or if they do, they won't lose out too much. in my case, I didn't make very much profit, but if it would have gone the other direction, I wouldn't have lost very much either. So, and in the meantime, we're kind of priming the pump, like where the money is circulating. You know, businesses are getting Bitcoin. Maybe the employees from those businesses will patronize other businesses around town, and it will begin to circulate. So, I think it's a small price to pay. Well, in this case, I was a winner, but it could have gone the other way. But for me, it's a small price to pay to like get things moving. Anyway. All right, speaking of price, $295 per Bitcoin. Things have gone pretty well, I think, since last week. Does anyone remember what the price was last week?
Yeah, it was down as low as 275.
Yeah.
I had some poor moments, or selling moments rather.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because I needed money and that's where I had it.
Uh-huh.
Music video expenses got out of hand.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Your tree climbing video?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked expensive. Avatar was one of the most expensive movies ever made, so the video, I'm sure, was...
They're pretty much on the same level. of
Yes.
technology.
Awesome. Okay, so we're in Indonesia. The Indonesian price is 3.9 million rupiah per Bitcoin. And you can see when the price moves, the volume is up. I sometimes look at the volume on the Indonesian exchange. When we first started, this was like 12 Bitcoins, 15 Bitcoins. And it's nice to see that they're turning over in the last 24 hours, 223 Bitcoins. It's a lot of money. How much is 200 Bitcoins at $300 a piece?
50 grand.
50 grand? And yeah,
60.
$50,000 or $60,000, and yeah, we're getting there. All right, let's take a look at the news. Fox Business. This is where I get all my news. I read this every morning. Does anybody know what the FOMC meeting is? Why do we care about the FOMC meeting? FOMC stands for Federal Open Market Committee. It is where the Federal Reserve sits down to twist their mustache and figure out how they're going to screw everybody over for the next little while. No, I'm just kidding. They do get together. And does anybody know what they're contemplating? What they're trying to figure out?
Monetary policy. Which
Right.
includes the interest rates.
Right, interest rates. They are setting the table for a rate hike. The interest rate, basically they set the overnight rate for commercial banks to take loans from the federal government. And almost all other interest rates are related to that overnight rate. So housing interest rates, car loans, credit cards, they're all, it's basically the price of money, the price, and for the last, well, ever since 2008, it's been basically zero. They haven't raised rates in something like 8 or 9 years. So this is a big deal. I think they say there's zero chance central banks will be raising interest rates at this meeting, but they're talking about doing it soon. Let's see.
Why do they call it the overnight right now?
The overnight interest rate or the federal open funds rate?
No, the overnight interest rate.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
But basically, when banks need to borrow money overnight to keep their reserve ratios in check,
Okay.
they'll borrow from the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve sets that interest rate. So we shall see. These guys this week, and that should have an effect on the markets. What they say now, what's their decision criteria? Basically, low interest rates presumably stimulate the economy. Printing money presumably stimulates the economy. So they're looking for an excuse, that things are getting better so that they can take the stimulus away, right? We're a heroin junkie. We want zero interest rates and we want money printing like crazy. And basically they're saying, can we afford to take the punch bowl away? Take a look at this graph here. I show this graph, this blue line, a lot. We talk about this blue line quite a bit. This is the money printing. And as you can see, in 2008, it went through the roof. We quadrupled the money supply. But this red line is the effective federal funds rate. That's the overnight rate that I mentioned. And you can see over the course of time, it has gone as high as, let's see, what was it here? Oh, there's no percentage rate there. I think it was like 17 or 18%. It went that high in the 80s under Carter. And basically it's been on a downward trend ever since. And since 2008, you can see it's like flatline, like the patient's dead. Can you guys see this here?
It can't be zero. Zero.
It's essentially zero.
Went too far.
It's
So just off.
it's very close to
you can't
zero.
make it, like, that would mean that you could borrow a limited amount of money from the federal government.
That would mean they would
Zero
pay you.
cost.
They could pay you to borrow money. How about that?
No, but it is zero, exactly zero. So
Zero.
banks can do that.
Right.
Banks can borrow
Well,
a amount of money, but
it's-
they increase the interest rate for people.
Right. So imagine if you could borrow money at 0% interest rate and then make loans to your friends, you'd have guaranteed income. And that's what banks are doing.
Yeah.
They're borrowing at 0 and loaning out at 0.025%. And it's a guaranteed profit.
Yeah.
So why go and find some entrepreneur to support when you can just flip a switch and make money without even thinking? And that's what has been going on. Now, the other interesting thing about this graph, gray areas, these are recessions. And you can see they happen, every so often, every few years. And we're due for one. Check it out. We haven't had one since 2008. But guess what? The Federal Reserve has no more guns in the barrel, or no more bullets in the chamber, right? They've already quadrupled the money supply. They've already held interest rates at 0. What can they do if we enter into another recession? Shrug their shoulders.
Change the,
Switch over there.
they still have one thing. They can change the M1 to M2 ratio.
Oh, they can say a little bit more about that. So say a little bit more about that. Oh, they can lower the reserve requirements, or
Yeah, for banks. Right now they have to hold 10% of their funds or something. They
Uh-huh.
can say 1% of the funds.
Interesting.
Even more chaos. But
Or maybe they could do like some don't ask, don't tell. Like don't tell us what your reserve levels are.
I don't know. I think they have to go with that. If they can reduce that M1, M2, it's even worse. That would even create worse situations.
Right. Well, it's going to get interesting. The world. Well, they make these decisions based on certain goals that the Federal Reserve has. For example, they want lowered unemployment rates. So you can see this has actually been, well, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? The uninflation rate has been falling since July 2014 from 6.2 down to 5.3. So that's like a good sign that they can hike rates, right? The thing that's interesting about that is, well, the way they calculate the unemployment rate, because this isn't unemployed people. These are people that are looking for a job but don't have one, and collecting unemployment, right? Which you only get for so long fired from a job. This doesn't count if you were an engineer but now you're working at McDonald's, like you're employed. So underemployment is not represented here.
It doesn't count people who aren't looking anymore either.
That's right.
This is huge.
But this is their mandate, to lower unemployment. And what is unemployment? It's calculated in a certain way. And this is the trend. But let's look at another number.
What if someone is been looking for so long that they can't get unemployment benefits anymore, but they're still looking? Are they still on that number?
No, they're not
Yeah,
exactly right.
You're out.
So that's millions of people right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably triple that number.
Well, here is the labor participation rate. Again, from the Federal Reserve themselves, but they're getting it from the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics. Here's the global financial crisis, and we're down, 63%, 63 point something labor participation. So what does that mean? 37% of Americans are not participating in the workforce.
Does that count housewives?
It does. It does. Well, if you were to take this graph back, I don't have a live version of the graph, but if you were to take it a ways back, you can see when the feminist revolution took place and when women went to work. Because back in the 50s, it was the man works and the woman stays at home. And then during women's lib, they all went to work, and you can see the labor participation rate climbing. And I believe we're right back down to where we were before women went to work. So it's interesting. There's also 40 or 50 million Americans on food stamps, so being subsidized by the government. The population of the United States is about 350 million people. Last thing I'll make you guys aware of, have you heard of Goodhart's Law? Well, you know, the Federal Reserve, this FOMC meeting, they're going to decide to raise interest rates based on unemployment rate and the inflation rate, right? And they want an inflation rate of 2%, and I think they want unemployment below 5%. So you can see we were heading that way, at least on unemployment. I don't think we're there yet on the inflation rate, but Goodhart's Law says that as soon as the government attempts to regulate any particular set of financial assets, these become unreliable as indicators of economic trends. So that's a long way of saying that when you're using the numbers to make decisions, the numbers get cooked. If you're using a number to make a decision, then people are going to game the system. What is it? When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. And that's what happens with the unemployment rate. They calculate it in a certain way so that when when Fox News says, hey, unemployment's down from 6.2% last year to 5.3%, hey, good news. Meanwhile, your uncle's either working at McDonald's or has dropped off the unemployment rolls. And the real situation is not represented in the numbers. So take a look at Goodhart's Law. I think that's
same with poverty line, where they just reduce the amount of money that you are making, and as defining as poor, you just keep reducing the amount of money.
So the poor people are going away. Look, we're making progress, when really you're just lowering the bar. Cool. And of course, all of these things, all of these numbers are manipulated when it comes to money, because the interest rate controls how much things cost, and the rate of monetary inflation also affects how everything is costs. Affects what everything costs. So it's a shifting sands of measurement. It's hard to tell what's really going on. It's like a house of mirrors. And of course, when you've got something as explicit as the unemployment rate, it's going to get gamed, and it is gamed. Finally, I'll bring to your attention this book, which is Alan Greenspan's Mea Culpa, The Map and the Territory. Does that make sense to anybody, what that might mean? It's, in my opinion, it's referring to Goodhart's Law, in that, economists, central bankers use all kinds of figures in order to make decisions, and they create what's called a model or a map. But according to Alan Greenspan, the map is not the territory, or the model does not necessarily represent reality. And for him to say that is pretty significant. If you go back and listen to Alan Greenspan speak at like the Council on Foreign Relations, or if you read his book, he's got a totally different outlook on the times that you see him from when he was the Federal Reserve Chairman giving testimony before Congress. And to me, that's fascinating. Of course, nobody listens to him anymore. He's like old news. But Ben Bernanke and now Janet Yellen are doing the same things. The things that he did tentatively, they're doing very boldly now, and it's an experiment the world has never seen.
Does he really go out and admit, though? I mean, in public now when he speaks, does Greenspan go out
Well,
and admit
he still
that he was
speaks
a
central
stubborn
banker.
idiot?
He's still speaking central banker, so you have to know how to speak central banker. If you can interpret what he's saying, I think it's absolutely a backpedal on everything that he talked about back in the day.
And
So
So it's a backpedal from what he did.
Yes. Yeah, and it's in the title. The map and the territory. He's making a distinction between the model or even the metrics that he's using and what reality is, or his ability to make decisions based on what he thinks is real. Anyway, I'm sure you guys are all going to go run out and read Alan Greenspan's book now,
Have you
right?
read it?
I have.
Good.
It's pretty dry.
That title sounds like he's absolving himself of play.
Well, I mean, I think he probably figures his legacy is at stake. I mean, he's still a recognized voice. If he can, he's still got, a few things to say before he passes on. Maybe he's trying to reconcile things, but it's kind of too late. I don't think he's affecting people's policy, and especially if he's adopting some of these contrarian viewpoints, I think he probably just gets, ignored.
Because he pushed so hard, like from 2006 to 2008. He was in the news all the time. He was so stubborn and such a jerk about it and wouldn't listen to anybody, right?
Yeah.
He was just totally overboard. So, I don't know how he has a shredded.
Well, we watched that movie. The movie we watched on Money Movie Monday was, what was it called? Money for Nothing. And it was that whole history. And at the time, he looked like a magician. Like, he looked really good at the time. And you zoom out a little further and things don't look so rosy now. But he could also just not say anything, so I give him some credit for at least trying. I'm of the opinion that nobody can centrally control the economy and that these things should be left to market forces. Two individual people can make a decision about their own circumstances and trade based on pure, unambiguous market signals versus all of this stimulus and all this economic theory and all this central planning. It's interesting. He's known as the regulate, right? And if he just would have read, we'd be in better shape. But he was the ultimate regulator. I mean, he's regulating the money supply itself, regulating the interest rate itself. It doesn't get more, there's no greater tampering or regulating than that. And those kinds of regulations have unintended consequences.
The good thing you can see there that there's 84 used copies from 1 cent.
Yes, you guys have no excuses.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm here to do the grunt work for you guys. It's just something I'm willing to do. I'm taking one for the team. I read it, and yeah, you can ask me later. I'm happy to give you my book report.
We just listen.
Yeah, get it on Audible, man. All right, new topic. Do you guys know what this chart is? What's XAU? Gold. What's happening? Any thoughts on that? I'm just curious, how many people have gold? Like real gold? You're not on camera, so no one's gonna. Yeah, is it Anya? How much? No. I'm just curious because I think gold has a place in everyone's portfolio. Get a little bit of gold. It's the only thing that truly has no counterparty risk. You don't need to do double entry bookkeeping with gold. It's just gold is gold is gold. If you were to find a it was lost. Over the centuries, gold holds its value. We'll have to see if that holds true into the digital era, into the Bitcoin era, because there's a lot of reasons why gold is not useful as money, and obviously gold does not circulate as money. But I think the reason that gold is so appealing, especially in kind of a doomsday scenario, is because it's the last ditch effort humanity has to count things. You can't counterfeit gold. Everybody recognizes what it is, and you can use it to account for other real things in the world. Silver's similar, yeah. It's the same idea. It's got a few different dynamics. I don't know did silver go off a cliff too, like gold did? I don't think so. I don't know enough about those two markets to know what the difference is. I know silver has they move similarly, but they have different qualities. I think silver's got way more industrial applications, and there's a smaller over versus how much is over the course of the next 30 years. A lot of people like silver better than gold as an investment, but
apparently it's a lot more volatile.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I have a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver. I think everybody should have a little bit and get the physical. Like, it doesn't matter if you've got a gold contract or a gold future. Those things are not the actual gold. When you actually need your gold in a crisis, that's when the paper will, execute at yesterday's gold price, not today's. So
you have to keep it with you, though. You keep it. You can't keep it in the bank because it's the same problem.
yeah, get a safe. Get a
Not in
safe.
the bank, yeah.
Yep.
No rapper style is wearing around your neck.
Yes. Yes.
During World War II, they're talking about legislation for expense. During World War II, the US government made it illegal for the US citizens to hold gold.
In 1933, they confiscated the entire gold, the official gold rate. But in 1933, President Roosevelt issued an executive order, and essentially all non-ornamental gold was to be submitted to the U.S. government at a fixed price. And then, of course, 6 or 8 months later, they cut that value by, I think, over 20%. So, not a good deal. But yeah,
unless you held on to it forever.
If you ignored that order, if you defied the U.S. government, how could you? Then you wouldn't be subject to that. So it's kind of an interesting mental exercise. I mean, what if that happened today? What would you do? I mean, I've got gold. What if Obama said everyone's got to take their gold down to the nearest DMV? Can you imagine? I mean, it's hard to.
People will bring out their guns at him.
Yeah. Well,
Then they can get the guns out.
Sure.
Well, it's a different world now than it was back in 1933. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of people did not turn in their gold at that time, but
It still happens.
that didn't. So anyway, the interesting thing about the fact that it's been quite some time. Here's a 2-year graph, but it fell off a cliff here. From the stuff that I read, we're in a deflationary environment, right? The world's economy is shrinking, and when the world's commodities deflate, so oil is down, things like raw materials, iron, they're all down. All those commodities down in China, and all of the mining stocks in Australia, for example, are way down. And this is what happens in a deflationary environment. Commodities go down in price. Well, gold is a commodity, right? So from what I read, gold goes down and we're maintaining their wealth, right? And looking to gold as a wealth preservation commodity, and then it should do a U-turn. So, I've owned gold for quite a while, and this is what they always talk about: is watch for the deflationary period, and after that, it will go up.
What happened in 2007 then?
$100, I think. Like,
where's
if you click
that?
on the 10-year. Yeah, it's below 500.
2007. So are you asking like?
Where was the deflationary signal that something was happening?
Oh, I don't know. There's some deflation here. I don't know if that counts. Does that count in your book?
2009.
Yeah, it kind of went up here and then down and
When
then,
Lehman's crash, September 2008.
yeah. This is, I guess that corresponds to that, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I just read this stuff. I haven't lived it, so I'm not sure.
Manipulated down and gold leasing.
Yeah, it's
How
kind
low
of,
does it go? So all these governments can supply.
yeah, unfortunately, gold doesn't, doesn't always do what you think it's going to do because there's all the paper gold
How
up
low
there.
do you reckon it's going to go?
I don't know. I read something that said gold could go down to $600, $700 an ounce.
Really?
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to see what happens when it hits 1,000. Then.
Yeah.
If it hits 1,000.
Well, the other interesting thing about that is, could gold be supplanted by Bitcoin as the thing that people use? Because Bitcoin has a lot of the same qualities. It's limited in supply, it's infinitely divisible, and it's more portable, way more portable than gold is, and there's no carry costs.
You can't stack it.
You can't stack it. Well, and it doesn't have the counterparty risk. It doesn't have the counterparty risk of the internet itself or the battery in your cell phone.
I think there might be a spike in Bitcoin price tied to the dip in the gold price. If it goes down considerably, people will start buying Bitcoin.
Well, that's the interesting thing about the price movements lately, because Bitcoin has been edging up, even as gold has been going down. So they're wildly different markets. I mean, gold is worth many multiples of what the whole Bitcoin ecosystem is worth. So it's hard to equate the two or plot one against the other and get some sort of meaningful correlation.
Has
But
there been any charts done like that look at the relationship between the two?
people do it, but I think they do it on a short time scale, and they don't account for the massive difference in the size of the two markets. So I don't think it's a real valid comparison, at least not on a short-term basis. Yeah. But eventually they should behave similarly, I would think. I would think that the world would, if Bitcoin proves itself to be reliable, why not use Bitcoin instead of having to put gold in a safe, or maybe you go way back down on gold, doomsday scenario, you have your gold just in case, but you use Bitcoin instead. They have a libertarian party up in New Hampshire every year, the Porcupine Fest, and they for years and years they would use silver, like real silver, to transact at this Porcupine Fest, and they would only in the last few years has Bitcoin arrived on the scene, and Bitcoin is totally supplanting this silver exchange mechanism because it's hard to make change and they don't have enough silver to go around, and Bitcoin, as long as they've got phones that work and an internet connection, Bitcoin's has way more utility as money. Yeah. So in that practical example, planting the precious metals for commerce. So. Right. Let's take Rupiah. Check this out. Over the last 2 years, it's gone from around 10,000 rupiah per dollar to 13,000 rupiah per dollar. That's like 30%.
What's that, 9,300 when I got here 2.5 years ago?
Yeah, that's a big swing. And, this is as high as it's ever been.
17 years.
Yeah, 17-year high. And we see a new one every day. If you ride your scooter, see the usually near the top of those exchange center boards, keeping up. It's pretty amazing. I don't think this is true against the Australians.
It's the US dollar that's strengthening.
Right.
The story is not so much the rupiah, the story is the USD.
Right. It's.
He looked at a graph.
Right. I think people are turning towards the dollar as a safe haven. They think that the dollar is and interestingly enough, if the FOMC raises rates in September, it should make the dollar even stronger, which is good and bad in various contexts, but it's kind of interesting nonetheless. I don't think, there's lots of people in the United States that don't want such a strong dollar because it hurts U.S. exports, but it makes a Bali vacation less expensive.
What's the 1 month look like?
Let's see.
That wasn't it 1 July where the Indonesian government brought in the only dealing with rupiah?
Yes. Yeah. Where's that? Like right in here. What did they do? They passed a law that said you can only accept rupiah as payment for financial dealings that take place in Indonesia.
Oh.
So you can't build it and for example. But seemingly that has not had an effect on stemming the tide. Well, and this article kind of goes into some of the details around it. Apparently, this is the president of Indonesia, Jokowi, is that how you pronounce it? He's having problems trying to implement some of his changes, and he's got infighting in his own party, according to this article.
Of course, they're fighting anti-corruption laws.
Yeah.
Corruption makes the country go round.
I think that's a multi-year undertaking, yeah. But again, they're talking about the commodities. I think 60% of Indonesians' balance of trade is based on exporting commodities. So a prolonged rout in commodities is also deepening concerns about Indonesia's economic health. End products, they're just shipping out their raw materials. And then they're importing the things that you can make with those raw materials, which are of a higher value. So that creates a poor balance of trade. And they try to fix that problem with rules about what you can pay for things in, or monetary
Import
policy,
duties.
right, or import duties. But the hard part is actually making something complicated that you want to export to the rest of the world. That's the hard part. It's easy to pull the levers of policy. It's hard to actually make good stuff happen, good real things happen. So combined with spiking inflation, annual inflation has remained above 7% since May, the highest in Southeast Asia. The economy is on the back foot ahead of a looming U.S. interest rate hike later this year. So you can see these little things peppered throughout all it's interesting to see this having our perspective here in Indonesia. Yeah, here's some reference to the protectionist measure, the heightened import duties, import tariffs, including food. I know wine gets taxed heavily on the way in, and I know there's a big kind of gray market or backdoor, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge on that pallet full of wine.
Now
So-
it's based on price and not volume.
Oh yeah,
I think it raised much more than 60 million.
yeah,
Especially on cars.
well,
Luxury car imports.
Right.
The tariff is
Interesting.
is huge. Yeah.
Hmm.
Just coming in. It's
Like how huge?
Oh, I don't remember the exact numbers.
Like 100% or
I think it's 150.
150% of the value of the car?
what I want to know is my scooter going to still be 500,000 a month, and is it still going to cost me 30K to fill up the tank?
Yeah, because they have joint partnerships for scooters.
Okay. All right. Is there anything we can do about the loud mufflers? Is that like, is there any kind of policy there? I think that would be good for the balance of trade.
Wire across the
I think, yeah, the loud mufflers. I think that should be a part of the policy.
Keep the core of the one.
Oh my God, we're 10 minutes over the hour. Well,
It's too much fun.
yes. Well, we didn't even get a chance to go around the world. We didn't get a chance to talk about proof of work. We didn't get a chance to talk about halving day.
Just go off track, Eric. Keep going.
All right, let's keep
Get
going.
rid of the half-
I was thinking about making these things an hour and 15 minutes. How does that sound, everybody?
I want to hear the grease thing.
What's that?
I want to hear the grease thing.
The Greece. Let's talk. Oh yeah, we didn't even get to Greece.
Oh,
That's
oh,
not
All right. Okay. Have you guys seen this article? This This was posted by Deborah. Deborah found this article from August 3rd. How about that for scooping, everybody? Oh, yeah. This is from the future. You guys don't even know what's going to happen yet unless you read this. This is great. This is long form in the New Yorker. This is inside baseball. This guy tells all about everybody he talked to. And the cool thing about this article, you can do a search for, let's see, comment. What did I do? Oh,
He is a long read.
do a search for comment. Oops. Come on, there were 6. All right, I don't know why this thing is screwing up. Anyway, there's like six instances of the word comment, and it's all in the context of no comment, no comment. We tried to reach this person for comment, and they didn't want to say anything. And he goes on to talk about, like, you know, when I was in that 14-hour meeting, and I was meeting with Schauble and Dusselblom, and he gives like a play-by-play. I said this, he said that. There's even some kind of backroom tell-alls about when he met Obama yeah, and Obama's talking about, like, hey, you're in a really tough spot, you know, austerity doesn't work. And then the reporter for the New Yorker, of course, tries to go verify all these things, and nobody will say anything, but it kind of rings true. And it's a really interesting read. I highly suggest. I sat there for an hour reading this thing. It's really long, but it's like it's like reading the tabloids. It's like salacious. So skip Kanye West and read about Vera Fukas. It's a good one.
It'll be interesting to see where he pops up next, provided he doesn't go to jail.
Well, you know, one of the points I was going to make. Let me see if I can get over here. Here.
He taught at the University of Sydney.
Yeah,
No,
he's
but I mean,
at the
like,
University of Texas.
What next he does?
Well, he is still very much in the public eye. Here is Alexis Tsipras, the who is he? The Prime Minister. He's got 288,000 Twitter followers. So take a look at Varoufakis, 600K. So he's got a much louder voice. Also, this guy doesn't speak English.
Hold on a second. Kim Kardashian's got like 40 million. We got our Twitter followers where screwed.
He doesn't speak any English.
Well, he's not nearly as fluent as Varoufakis. So who knows? Maybe he's still working on his political career in Greece. The other thing that's interesting.
Varoufakis is still a minister. Like he's not a finance minister, but he's still a member of parliament.
Yes, that's
So
true.
he didn't fully resign.
That's true. He's no longer the finance minister, but he's still in an elected office in the government. And they go into all that, by the way, in that New Yorker article. If you're ever curious, like, who is this guy? Where does he come from? What's his standing? They go into all that in the New Yorker article.
Super interesting.
Is this link also in Bitcoins and bottom?
If
Telegraph?
it's, I don't know if this one was. I think this
Yeah,
one was.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
this is the one that Simon posted. Cloak and Dagger Plan B for Greece awaits treason charges. What is this? Oh my. Well, this is according to Varoufakis himself. Again, he's talking out of school, which I love. And he goes on to talk about how this new government was elected back in January. And since that time, taking office, according to Varoufakis, he created a plan B for going to the drachma at the flip of a switch. Right? He created a whole plan of ditching the euro, moving to the drachma on a moment's notice so that he could flip the finger, so to speak, to the troika. And in order to do that, he had to hack into his own servers. Let's see, Mr. Varoufakis recruited a technology specialist from Columbia University to help handle the logistics. Faced with a wall of obstacles, the expert broke into the software systems of the tax office, then under control of the EU IMF Troika in order to obtain the reserve accounts and file numbers of every taxpayer. Quote, we decided to hack into my ministry's own software program. I love it. Is that not great or what? That is worth the price of admission right there. And he goes on to say that he's under investigation. He's waiting to be charged with treason. How's this going to play out? This is good stuff, man. You don't need daytime television when you got this. Let's see. What else do I want to say? Mr. Varoufakis said that any request for permission would have tipped off the Troika immediately that he was planning a counterattack. He was ready to activate the mechanism the moment he received a green light, but the permission never came. Real, as the headline says, real cloak and dagger stuff there. Take a look at that. We'll put that link in the show notes.
They said there was a line that
Bitcoin's
said
involved.
he learned that on the night of the referendum, he wasn't going to pull the trigger on the parallel banking. So right after he got the vote he wanted, he still pussied out.
Well, I think he was preparing for. Oh yeah, you're right, because he would have needed to pull in the event that they voted no, right? Because then everything would, like anything, would have been in play if they listened to the electorate. But
right, that was the whole thing.
But he had to get the decision from the prime minister, and the prime minister ended up rolling over on everything.
Sounds like the prime minister wanted a yes so that he could get out of it without taking responsibility. He wanted the people to say yes. He said, "Oh, we're going to accept it. It's
Right.
not my fault."
But then it didn't
Then
go
he
his
did,
way.
and he pussied out anyways.
Yeah, well, isn't that a stark example of no democracy?
And no spine.
He should be up for treason.
Yeah, seriously.
Well-
Was expecting a yes as well.
Yeah, that New York article you sent through gives some context to that referendum vote, because he thought there was no way it was going to go no.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Anyway, it ain't over yet.
So I posted that article yesterday, and I found it fascinating in terms of everything that's coming out from Varoufakis. Nothing's been said today. Like, there's no.
You mean like this very day,
Yeah,
or
not that I've seen anyway.
you're used to that constant
I was waiting
potty
for
mouth from Varoufakis? You're like, where is he today?
No,
Hasn't
not
said
so much.
Someone saying,
His
"Oh,
Twitter's
full
full
of shit."
Not so much from Varoufakis, from everyone else. Like, going, holy shit, what is going on here? No, nothing's happened.
Yeah, I don't know. You really get a sense of this guy reading that New Yorker article, and he just doesn't give a shit.
It's good.
No, he does give a shit.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Well, that's one. He doesn't give a shit what people think. He does give a shit about Greece, it seems.
What was the thing that his grandfather did during the Greek Civil War?
He was, it was in prison.
For something. Oh, that's right. He wouldn't betray his communist.
Yeah, so he's communist.
mates.
Yeah, all he had to do was sign something, and he would have been out. And he spent 4 years, a la Nelson Mandela. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's well embedded in his lineage right there.
He's got the rebel genes. I'm surprised they haven't called him a terrorist yet.
It's coming.
Starting himself as a Republican intellectual for a while as well. So
He's 54 and he's 40.
In that New Yorker, there's a few Che Guevara references going on.
That's true. That's right. All right, guys, we are way over time. Any final thoughts? Famous last words?
China.
Again, we've talked about the big issues. We didn't even really get to Bitcoin, really. But I think all this stuff has a bearing on Bitcoin and the attractiveness of it. So it's all in context. Anyway, thanks for coming tonight, guys. Like I said, this will be my last filter until September, but Rick Shreve's going to take over next week. You are in very good hands. We're going to maintain continuity and still get together same place, same time, and we're still going to do it online as well. So anyway, I'll miss you guys, but I won't be gone long. I'll be back before you know it, and we'll see you then. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. All right.
I'm gonna head to the delicious onion.